Have you ever wondered, is it more cost effective to build your own suspension versus buying an aftermarket suspension? Well, I've wondered that too. So we are going to dig into how much it actually cost me to build a double Wishbone suspension on this car. So stay tuned. Welcome everybody. Before digging into the cost, let's give a recap of the suspension, just in case you guys haven't watched all the videos of the build, or just as a refresher of what is on here. So it's a 1994 Mustang that I designed and built my own double wishbone front suspension for the car, also called an SLA. So let's dig into what is going on in here. Going from the outside in, I went with the stock setup that I basically already had on the car to really save the cost. So Cobra brakes, SN95 spindle. The adapter for the upper control arm is from Griggs Racing. The upper control arm is from Joe's Racing. The bracket that sandwiches the frame that holds this upper control arm is designed and built by myself. The lower control arm is all custom as well. The K member is a factory one that's been modified to raise the suspension points. The steering is a bump steer kit from Maximum Motorsports, but then the sleeve is a longer one, since the whole car has basically been widened some with the suspension setup. The coilover is from JRI Shocks, and the spring is from H&R. The mounting up at the top for the coilover is a custom one that I built. So that is, in the nutshell, basically my home-built SLA suspension for this Mustang. All right, I've totaled up everything that I basically put into getting the suspension built and driving. Any improvements or changes or fixes that I made throughout the year, I'm not including it in this cost. This is going to be just what it took to get it built and installed on the car. So the first thing that I start off with is a program. So I bought a suspension analyzer from Performance Trends that cost $300. So I'm putting that into like this bucket for R&D. There will be a few more things in R&D, but I'll get to those as we kind of go. The next thing is the lower control arms. As I said, I built those. So those total up to $316.41 for both sides. Next is the upper control arms, which I purchased, but there's a few other things that kind of went along with that, but that totaled up to $437.44. So a big kind of cost there. Ball joints, that is including the upper and lowers, but also the upper control arm adapter brackets from Griggs that I mentioned. So those were a little pricey at $500 for the pair, but total for ball joints is $1,044.76. The next is the mounting. So anything that it took to mount the control arms to the car. So this includes the brackets that I got cut from Sen Cut Sen, bolts, washers, nuts, anything that took to mount also the coilovers to the car. So that all totaled up to $430.18. Next is the steering. So I still had a stock steering rack, but since I made the car wider, I needed to get some longer tie rod end things on there. So that totals up to $114.98. So at this point, we are at $2,343.77, and that is just for the hard suspension points onto the car. I reused the spindles, as I said, so that really saves some cost there. I already had the brake set up on the car, so that saves some cost there. But coilovers with the JRIs and the springs on there, that totals to $2,152. With the coilovers in there, we are now at the $4,495.77. So basically $4,500 for the front suspension on the car. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that there'd be other costs in that R&D, so I screwed up a few times and had to purchase more things. So in total, my R&D cost is $428.88, And then I also had some tooling. I had to buy some special tools here and there for things. So that comes up to $132.64. Might be missing a few other things in there, I don't know. But overall, I'm at $5,000. $5,000 into the front suspension. And that's basically for version 1. I'm already in the process of thinking of version 2, changing up some of the upper control arm bracketry. The lower control arm needs to be redesigned. Probably going to do a sway bar as well this year. But yeah, version 1 is done, $5,000. Working on version 2. This is part of R&D. This is part of engineering. This is part of constant improvement. It's going to keep evolving, but I know everything about the suspension. I know how to make all the changes that I need to make. I'm still learning why and what to actually tweak to get what I want the car to do, but I have a lot of adjustability in the suspension from the design, from the get-go. Now, how does that actually compare to what is available on the market? Let's start off with Griggs, because it's one of the big known ones for these cars. So looking through their configurator, doing just a basic setup, still using the same kind of spindle that I'm running, not running their aftermarket spindle. We're looking at basically $6,200, but that comes with a K-member, that comes with the upper lower control arms, that comes with a bump steer, sway bar, coilovers. The only thing that it does not come with is the spindle and the hub. So that is actually a pretty good deal, it seems like, since I'm sitting at like $4,500 to do my whole setup again. For $62, you can get one from Griggs. Now, another popular brand out there is Cortex. So for Cortex for this car would be $6,500. So let's take a look at what that actually comes with. That comes with their spindles, which are all aluminum, really nice. Comes with hubs, lower control arms, upper control arms, the mounts, shock mounts, anti-roll bar, and bump steer kit. So there are a few things that are missing that really add up the cost, as we learned with doing this one. It does not come with the K-member, so you would have to get a K-member. Maximum Motorsports or another one would probably work, but I don't know if the stock one would actually work out with this kit, or I would probably not recommend it, the stock one, because you got to raise the lower control arm points, but does not come with a K-member. Coilovers does not come with coilovers. That is a huge cost depending on which ones you want to do. Yeah, you could save some cost by not getting nice ones, but if you're doing the suspension, you want to get some nice ones. So like I have $2,000 on coilovers and the springs. Steering rack it doesn't come with, and then you have to run a S197 brake system. So a lot of added cost to the Cortex one that's not really covered. So I think the Cortex one, I mean, if you go with the same shocks, you're already at $8,000 for the Cortex. Adding in big brakes and K-member, you're probably looking close to $10,000 for the Cortex full one. Going back to the Griggs one real quick, if you add in the spindle like the Cortex one has, that does bring your cost up to $9,300. So that is, the spindle is a big one. The spindle is really nice. It is a drop spindle for both Cortex and Griggs. So I would like to add a spindle, but a spindle is $3,000. It's a lot of money. So that's just something to think about when looking at those kits. Look at what is included, what is not included. Then the big talk going on right now is Ride Tech. The Ride Tech SLA, which is not technically for an SN95, at least not yet. It's for the Fox body, but we are going to talk about that one a little bit because that is a big one that is getting a lot of chatter going on right now. So that one is for the stock K member, it's $3,300, and then for aftermarket K member, it's $3,600. But what that doesn't come with, so that is pretty cheap, but it does not come with the K member. You have to have a K member, as I said, the stock one or the aftermarket one. And then you also need to add in the coilovers. That's not included in their kit, so you have to run probably their coilover because it's a shorter setup one. So that's $756 for one, so $1,500 extra for the two of them. So that brings your total up to what, $4,800 at this point. So basically the same that I have in my suspension. And in my opinion, my suspension is better than the RideTech one. I have a lot more adjustability in mine than RideTech's does. I do like RideTech's spindle though. Another thing that needs to be included into RideTech's you need is caliper brackets. So they have different options, either SN95 or S550 caliper brackets, but those look to be about $120 to $170 that you have to add on, and then depending on which setup you go with, you maybe got to get new brakes, calipers, rotors, things like that to go along with that. That is all the cost that went into building the front suspension for the Mustang here. Yes, it was a little bit more expensive than I thought and that I had planned, but there's a lot that kind of goes into all the little bits that actually build out the suspension, all the bolts and things like that. But I am cheaper than the aftermarket. I am cheaper than RideTech, cheaper than Griggs, cheaper than Cortex. Do I think my suspension is any better than those? No, I don't. I think they have better build quality, better durability. Griggs and Cortex probably have better design than mine, but mine is very comparable once you get it onto the race course, and this is pretty much just for autocross. But I have all the adjustability that I need, that they have, maybe even more than some of them have. But overall, I'm really happy with the design. I would do it all over again. And with that, thank you guys for watching. As I said, there will be some improvements coming to the car, so we got some build videos coming up. If you have any questions on the suspension, leave them down in the comments. I will do my best to answer everything that I can. So thank you guys for watching. Later.